I had to have our guy Nick Underhill on. He's a wealth of knowledge. You got training camp coming up. So we're going to go out to the phone lines. Nick Underhill, neworleans.football, joining us right now. Nick, how are you on this Friday?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for hopping on. I know it's been a crazy week. We kind of had to adjust a few things. Look, Nick, Saints training camp right around the corner, but where I want to start, it's all the talk had been about these second-round picks, all holding out, contract situations and all that. Like, where do things stand with Shough contract-wise right now?
It's still a standoff. The guys ahead of them are still getting fully guaranteed deals. I think Seattle just gave one last night to the 35th pick and Chuck's pick 40. So I think where it's kind of at right now is you saw just kind of over the last couple of days, like the Avalanche in the back half of the second round, those guys have all started to sign because one of them buckled and accepted non-guaranteed money. So that means everyone behind him isn't getting all of their money guaranteed. But as it stands right now, Houston guaranteed that contract to the 33rd pick. So everybody behind him is still kind of holding out to see if they can get their contract fully guaranteed, and Chuck is at pick 40. So I think it's just a matter of seeing what happens ahead of him or seeing if the Saints buckle at this point. And, it's kind of a funny thing. I mean, I get it from a team perspective, and, as Pablo Torre and Mike Florio have been pointing out, like there is a lot of reason to believe there's collusion in the NFL. And, I think, this is a situation where teams obviously don't want to set a precedent, and it's out in the open. If you guarantee down to pick 47 this year, then next year everybody down to pick 47 is getting guaranteed, and now pick 48 is fighting. And then, before you know it, the guy, it's into the third round, and the third rounders are fighting for it. So I get it from a team perspective. For Tyler Shough and these other guys, like the real issue at hand here is really comes down to, a little bit, about $1 million, $1 million and some change of money they want guaranteed. It's less than 10% of the total contract. It's not going to change anybody's reality, really. And if we were talking about a safety, I might feel a little bit different about it. Okay, well, you probably want to be able to walk away in year 4 if it doesn't work out. Isaiah Foskey was the 40th pick in the draft at one point in time. As I look at it, if it doesn't work out this year, I hope they can walk away from him and not have any dead money on the books. On the flip side of this, so we're talking about a quarterback, like a guy that they drafted at 40 to start this year. I mean, it's kind of an unprecedented situation. I can't remember the last time a second rounder was drafted with the idea that they were going to have to start on, potentially day one if things work out. I mean, it's a crazy situation. And kind of through that context, like, let's change the parameters of this discussion. Like, if Tyler Shough, had an ankle sprain and there was a guy in Germany that could get him back on the field without missing a practice, but it would cost $1.5 million to heal the ankle, I don't think anybody would bat an eye at her spending that money, to get him back on the field. Like, I think the time is that imperative in this situation. I think a day missed is a huge missed opportunity. So, they took the last day off of minicamp, and like privately, like I hated it. It's like you got two guys that are trying to get ready for the season, and you're not practicing today. And they were kind of practicing at double time. They got all their reps in. Like, I understand it. Team building matters too, but like looking at it that way, I was just kind of like, man, like Tyler Shough, like another day of practice is invaluable. If this goes into training camp and he's missing days, like I feel like it's a huge opportunity lost. The way these things are kind of falling into place, it seems like it's probably going to get settled before then. I will say that, like, we saw how the Saints sweated out Derek Carr and, all these other guys. Like, Mickey Loomis does not fold in these situations very often. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens if they're still at a standoff. But, like, the matter at hand is really about $1 million in guaranteed money 4 years from now. And, I've killed them for their cap management for years, so I don't want to, like, sit here and talk out of, like, both sides of my mouth. But, like, I don't know, man, $1 million on having a chance to a better chance of fixing your quarterback situation. Like, if it comes down to Tuesday morning and this ain't done, I can't sit here and say that I'm not going to be standing there on the sideline, like, wondering what the hell they're doing. Like, I would just give them the money at that point.
Right. Speaking of camp coming up, Nick, obviously everyone's going to watch the quarterback battle if Shough's there between Shough and Spencer Rattler. But maybe outside of QB, like top position battles you're watching, what are those?
I mean, there's a handful of them, I think. I think especially running backs, one behind Kamara, that's really interesting. There's a lot of veteran guys there, Kendrick Miller, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They brought in the rookie. Like, there's a bunch of guys that I think are competing for reps there that make it really interesting. I think safety's kind of a quietly an interesting situation, too. Like, seemed to be really high on Jordan Howden during these practices during the early part of the summer. They brought in Jonas Sanker. Tyron's obviously there. Reed's obviously there. I don't know how they're all going to fit together. They were playing Howden with the starters opposite Reed. Tyron was obviously, not at the voluntary portion, was brought back a little bit slowly through minicamp. I expect them to be back out there with the ones. But, I think they have a high view of Jordan Howden and, kind of how that all sorts out. I think it's going to be fascinating. But I really do think the biggest one other than quarterback, besides Trevor Penning versus himself and just trying to be a competent player, I think the other one is a cornerback between Quincy Riley and Ike Adam. And I think that kind of has like pretty big future implications as well. Now, obviously, like, odds are probably, maybe both of them don't work out as a long-term solution. But if Riley can win that job and he's a solid starter, I mean, that's a huge answer going into next year. And we've talked, a bunch of times on here just about how uncertain that position is and how much they really might have to invest in it next offseason. If Alontae Taylor gets out of here, Kool-Aid's still under contract, but I think he has some stuff to prove this year. And then you have the hole at the other one still. If you got two holes, like that's a lot to try to figure out, especially if you're trying to draft an edge rusher, and you might need if you aren't planning on signing Chris Olave to the Garrett Wilson contract, wide receiver is a huge need next year. So if you can, well, not next year, but I mean, you'd be in the last year of that deal and be staring it down. But I mean, I think that cornerback position is a huge one. If you can scratch that off the list, it would be a massive thing for the future of the franchise.
Yeah, Nick, a lot of people have been talking about that cornerback battle, but I want to go back to something you just mentioned about Jonas Sanker at that safety spot. Like, look, you bring in Justin Reed, you still have Tyron there, you mentioned Jordan Howden, but whether it's anybody that's been out there has raved about Jonas Sanker. Like, is there a realistic shot that he could start at safety for this team this year?
I don't know if he starts, but I think he's definitely in that development canon to where there's actual potential there. I really, really liked watching him. I think the guy that gets the most value out of him this year is going to be Phil Galliano on special teams. His special teams reps are like insane. It really, you go through it and watch that stuff, and there's not a lot of gunners that you go and watch on, and you can get a whole YouTube cut up of them, but like they're out there at him, and he looks really, really good there. His instincts really stood out in camp. He jumps routes well. I think kind of the vision-based defense they play suits his skill set really well. Just kind of can sit back there and read stuff and make some plays. I think he has a chance to get some real reps this year. But I think the most likely thing is sort of like they bring in Von Bell a year early, and that type of situation where they get some reps as a rookie. They're in that development situation, and then they're ready the next year. But I mean, having any of those guys exposed to Tyron like for a year, I think helps quite a bit. The leadership back there is really good, but I think when it comes down to it, the starters are going to be Reed and Tyron probably. In a nickel package, it looks like they're probably leaning more toward three corners. In dime, I think he could maybe get some dime reps for sure. Him and Howden will be competing for that. So I think there'll be opportunities there for him to get on the field. But look, if he were to push his way up this year, that'd be outstanding. They need good young players to build around. I don't think there's enough on the team. I think he does have a chance, though, to be a good player. I really, really like that pick. I like the value. And even if it's not like it's safety, I think he's going to be an absolute weapon on special teams.
Just one more for you before we get you out of here. Nick Underhill of neworleans.football joining us right now. I want to switch to the offensive side, Nick. I was scanning neworleans.football yesterday, reading the article you guys put out about, what you want Alvin Kamara's role to be in the upcoming season. But, we know Kamara is going to be the lead back. Like, there's no question about that. I want to look at the guys maybe behind him because there's a lot of bodies there all of a sudden, but not a ton of proven guys in terms of this building. Like, who do you think kind of emerges behind Alvin Kamara?
Man, that's such a tough question. I mean, I'd probably put my bet on Devin Neal right now, just because, like, I don't know, like they got something invested in him. But man, like it's so wide open, and I don't know that anyone really distinguished themselves in the summer portion of practice. I hate that. Like, I can't quit on Kendra Miller. Like, I have no idea, but like, I just feel like there has to be a football coach somewhere in America that can take his skill set and put him on the field and just find a way to get use out of him, even if it isn't perfect everywhere else. Like, we've seen him rip off like 11-yard runs when he doesn't know the play. Like, there has to be a way to make it work with him. I mean, his athleticism, his ability is crazy. I talked to him earlier this offseason. He told me this is like the most comfortable he's ever felt coming into a season. He was healthy the whole offseason. He could focus more on, what he needs to do in the role instead of trying to get healthy. He feels like he's ready to hit the ground running. He's out there practicing in the OTAs and minicamp for the first time in his career. Like, maybe that sets up for him, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's one of the most fascinating things, going into these practices. And, the thing that it's just hard. It's hard to tell, like in a training camp situation too, because they aren't tackling. And, I'm just reminded of 2017, like we're out there the whole summer watching those practices, and like we know Alvin's good. Like, there's things that stand out, but we had no idea like about the contact balance and what he was actually going to be. And you go back and look at that coverage, there's no one like predicting difference maker superstar status. It's like, yeah, they got a nice back. Like, you might give them the satellite back they've been missing. Then you get to the preseason, and in that first game, he has the crazy run. He's bouncing off everybody. And it's like, who the hell is this guy? And it's just kind of hard from our perspective to really like know out here for it. So I think that's really going to be something that we kind of see in the preseason. But it is a big battle, and it is like it's important to a certain degree. I mean, you don't want Alvin having to carry the ball 250 times. Like, for my money, like I want him around here for a couple more years. I don't want him to get worn out and just get used up in a season that just probably, all things considered, probably isn't going to amount to a whole lot. So, I just don't want to see him like have to be the focal point of the offense on like every single play. You already got, a young quarterback. Probably aren't going to be a whole lot of attempts there. Like, you're probably figuring like 3,800 yards or something like that. That's what Jaden and Caleb were at last year. So that means you're going to be running a lot. So, RB2 is going to be a very important position.
Nick Underhill of neworleans.football. Check out him and the team stuff over there at neworleans.football. Nick, thank you so much for hopping on with me today.
Yeah, no problem, man. Take it easy.